Today I want to talk to you about one of the very important jobs, and the best time to be doing it is now in autumn. Composting. There isn't a better time than autumn to start a compost heap. If you haven't already got one going, then you are absolutely best time of year to be starting one, and if you have got one going, now is a really good time to be turning it over and then starting afresh, getting it going again. So now is a really great time to be starting your compost heap if you haven't already started. This is what we're talking about today. If you like this, if you want to hear more about composting and starting compost heap, then stay tuned. Gardening. Hello and welcome to Gardening Naturally with Green Fingertips with me, Josie Rainbird, your natural gardening coach. Autumn is the best time to be starting a compost heap. Your garden is naturally dying back. You've got an awful lot of organic materials, organic waste to be getting rid of. Adding them to your compost heap is an incredibly efficient way and a money saving and time saving way of supporting your garden. Now, I have had a compost heap for many years. They make life so much easier for you in your garden. You don't have to spend out to try and get rid of organic waste, take it to the tip, throw it away in the rubbish, that sort of thing. You can then recycle it to create compost for your garden and then condition the soil with it. You can use it for potting on. There's an abundance of different ways, a massive amount of different ways that you can use homemade compost in your garden to support the health of your garden. Compost doesn't have to be just made from the waste from your garden. So like grass cuttings, when you prune your plants back, things like that, vegetable waste. You don't have to use it in just your garden. If you've got a small garden, you don't think you're going to have enough to require a compost heap, you can also use vegetable waste, peelings and paper and cardboard from your home to do this as well. You don't have to just use garden waste. You can use household waste as well. You are cutting back your garden in the autumn time, ready to prepare it for winter, to condition the soil, to mulch, things like that. When you're getting ready for preparing your garden for winter, you will naturally be cutting plants back. You'll be heavily pruning to reduce damage as you go through the winter months. You'll be cutting back all the summer flowering plants, a lot of dead heads will be coming off. There's an awful lot of organic waste. This can all go into your compost heap. When it's composted down, it creates very highly nutritious compost for your garden. So having all of this available and starting your compost heap off now can really give your compost, if you like, a good boost, a good start in life. So yeah, it's a really good idea. If you're going to start a compost heap, start it in the autumn when you've got all that abundance of organic material that you're already cutting back and you've got to hand. Things that I wouldn't recommend if you are cutting things back this time of year, and things I wouldn't recommend adding to your compost heap right now would be heavily hard woody material. So if you're pruning trees, for instance, if you're pruning thick old shrubs, anything with a real hard woody kind of stem to them, they won't compost down very quickly. They're better if you chipped them first. If you put them through a chipper or a shredder or something like that, if you chip them first, they will break down faster. But if they go in as a branch, they will take years to break down and they just will not be efficient in a compost heap. So as much as it's important to have heavier woody material sometimes in a compost heap, you've really got to look at how you put it in there. But green waste, like the herbaceous type plants, when you're cutting back herbaceous plants, dead heads, dead flower heads, leaves, things like that, absolutely perfect. Just try and avoid, if you can at this stage, putting any heavy woody materials in. Weeding, if you're weeding and you've got any very invasive weeds, such as bindweed, ground elder, things like that, very invasive and will grow from the roots. Ivy can be a bit of trouble as well, things like that. Don't put those in your compost heap. They will literally just take over your compost heap and then you'll have a heap of weeds growing. They will not be any good. The compost heap won't get hot enough for them to prevent them growing. They will use all the nutrients that your compost is providing by composting down. You'll just use them all up and you'll have a whole load of weeds growing. Compost won't be much use. So try and avoid, if you can, adding anything that's really invasive and will grow from root. And the same goes with some seed heads as well. If you don't want it back in your garden, generally speaking, don't put it in your compost heap. Now, things like marigolds, borage, much as it's lovely to have in the garden because it does such a fantastic job as a companion plant, attracting in beneficial insects, supporting the environment, they'll keep coming back each year because they seed so fantastically well. But if you're cutting off these seed heads, try and avoid, if you can, put them in a compost heap unless you know that you're going to want them to grow, because your compost will have them in it, and then as you're mulching, they'll spread throughout the garden. So something to keep in mind when you're cutting off dead heads, just look at the plants that you're cutting them off of and decide whether you do want those back in your garden or not. So that's a good one as well. If you'd like to know more about the best compost that you can make and how you can make it, so click here for the compost playlist and click here for my next video in the run. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up because it helps YouTube to show my videos to more people, which I love. And if you enjoyed this video, I like to know that I'm making good content for you guys. So a thumbs up always helps me out. If you would like to see more videos from myself, click the subscribe button right here, and I'll see you in my next video. See you later.